What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here alongside Josh Davis. Welcome to the Wednesday Link Live. 30 minutes late, but still here. Better than the last 2 weeks when we were both traveling for Thanksgiving and for vacation. Josh, welcome in. We have some pretty interesting breaking news to go and jump into, starting with Christian Ellis. We'll start with your evening. How's it going?
It is going well, and I will take all the blame for being a little bit late here. It was a crazy evening, so just had to get it started a little bit late, but we are here, and nonetheless, like you say, we got some breaking news, some changes coming off of obviously a difficult loss, but I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll get into reasons why, and I'm sure
Right.
opinions and everything else that we see for the chat, but yes, we've got some breaking news, as you say.
Let's start with that. Christian Ellis is gone. He's officially been released from the Philadelphia Eagles. What came with a pretty big surprise to me. You knew they had to make a roster spot in order to bring on Shaq Leonard, who, of course, was at the NovaCare Complex today. He spoke to the media. I'm sure both of us will have that in our shows tomorrow. But they made that roster spot by getting rid of a starting linebacker last week. Christian Ellis started last week. Wasn't very good, but he did start for Philadelphia. And what was once the training camp hero, or should I say offseason workout program hero of the Philadelphia Eagles is no longer with us. What was your first take on that?
Yeah, I won't lie. Everyone knows I don't mind it. I'd said that Christian Ellis, I thought there was a chance from him being in the offseason. Maybe he wins a starting job. Maybe he plays a little bit. He did. He started a little bit, as we know.
Yeah.
Granted, more of a in relief, but I don't know. Honestly, he hasn't played very well. A lot of the linebackers have struggled, but it's one thing with Ellis that we've seen a number of times is in today's NFL. It's the play fakes. He plays very fast, but he even admitted it coming out away from the game. He said, "Yeah, I'm moving too quickly. Like I see motion or I see movement, and it's just full speed ahead, one direction." And in this NFL, especially against the Niners, who love to use motion, love to use trickery, it got you a number of times in the wrong spot. Now, Nicholas Morrow is certainly to blame too, because the yards after catch were ridiculous when you targeted Nicholas Morrow. But the holistic, bigger picture. Morrow's had a better campaign than Ellis is. So if you had to cut someone, it's not a total surprise. If you were going to go linebacker, I wouldn't have. I guess I could have seen if it was a different player altogether. But if you felt like, hey, you got to get rid of a linebacker, it's not a total shock. But it also wouldn't surprise me too if Christian Ellis finds his way back onto the practice squad. You wait till he clears waivers. Maybe a team goes and gets him. But if there's a possibility, you bring him back. The biggest. I don't know, I guess argument to keep him would have been special teams, because he's been okay. He's been decent on special teams, and I know the Eagles have liked him. So I don't know. Maybe it's not his days are over completely in Philly. We see him on the practice squad. Who knows? But yes, officially he is gone. Little bit shocking, if you rewind, obviously, to the offseason when we saw him.
Yeah, I would echo everything that you just said, and I would add in that they must feel very confident in Shaq Leonard. And Shaq Leonard felt very confident in himself. He mentioned earlier today at his very first media scrum outside of his brand new locker, which is Derek Barnett's locker, kind of interesting there, that he still wants to prove that he's a really good player. Shaq Leonard is not coming into Philadelphia trying to prove that he's a serviceable level linebacker who could maybe be the number 2 on a bad football team. No, he still thinks he can play at an all-pro level. Now, whether that's true or not, you can ask the Colts, because why would you cut an all-pro level linebacker? But Eagles must feel very confident to get rid of a linebacker, despite the fact that it's a very weak spot, because now you kind of think about it, behind Shaq Leonard and Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham, who's supposed to return this weekend against the Dallas Cowboys, your fourth linebacker is Ben Van Sumeren, who they like, but he's an undrafted free agent from Michigan State who, I think Christian Ellis is raw. I mean, this guy is absolutely, completely raw to the bone and has a long way to go to become a serviceable level linebacker. So they must feel very confident in Leonard. I'm pumped to see what Leonard is able to do, and they had him in meetings all day yesterday, according to Nick Sirianni, trying to get him up to speed with what Desai wants to do this weekend, and I think they're going to use him a lot. I think he's seriously going to have a ton of playing time alongside Cunningham. Wouldn't be surprised if he's the other starting linebacker on Sunday night versus Dallas.
Let's see it. I'm totally for it too. Again, we've talked about this a number of times, but like, who else are you going to go with, really? I mean, again, I don't think that we're going to see a Shaq Leonard. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope that I'm wrong. I don't think that we're going to see a Shaq Leonard of old. Now, you've mentioned it a number of times too, and I'm totally with you. If we get a 70% of Shaq Leonard, that's great. That is really good, because with this defense here, we will take it. What we've seen from the linebackers and them being able to be torched at times, we need that. Hopefully it's better play recognition. Hopefully it's better in just the scheme fit and having, I don't know, just the the wherewithal on the field. I don't know what you want to call it, but just the awareness in general. So I'd love to see it. I like the fact that Shaq is confident. Obviously, again, you're the Birds. You're not going out there and making this acquisition unless you feel like he already had his physical. He's good to go. We need him.
Right.
We were thin in it to begin with, but at the same time, you bring up a great point as well. It's like, okay, if he was going to be, like, I don't know what, average, mediocre, would the Colts have let him go in that instance? I don't know. We're not talking about a Colts team that is where the Cardinals are in Jonathan Gannon.
Right.
Like, the Colts are fighting for a playoff spot. That's not let's just torch everything and start over next year. So I don't know. I hope this is one of those that you find the fountain of youth, you have a different change of scenery, and this is good to go. I'm just trying to be optimistic. I'll just say that. I know that I've seen it. You've seen it in the comments. We're all talking about it, but the coaches, the scheme, blow it up. I know that's probably to the extreme. I don't know that the majority of us feel that way, but there needs to be changes. But come on, the whole fire Desai, fire Brian Johnson. This team is 10-2. Like, do we really think that is the best case or the best scenario to go with here of let's get rid of these guys? I know changes need to be made, but we shouldn't do that, right? Do you expect to see changes at least, though, from the coordinators? Because they're finally admitting it to some sort, I guess.
I don't. And I mean, you talk about the comments. Jason earlier said, talk me off the ledge, guys. I mean, Eagle fans are seriously panicking, and you and I get a really good, I would say, read on this because we see your guys' comments on our daily shows. We get hundreds of thousands or hundreds and hundreds of comments every single day, thousands of comments every day. And the majority of mine, I know the majority of yours, Josh's, have been that the Eagles are bad, that the offense and defenses are horrible. Half my comments say to fire the offense and defensive coordinators. I mean, people are really serious here, and that needs to be addressed. First, though, we're almost at 600 people watching between both channels. Only 54 likes. Hit the thumbs up button right now. It helps.
Let's get the likes.
Find the live show. So if we get over 200 likes here in the next couple of minutes, that would be absolutely fantastic. Of course, a lot of people joining us right now, and I appreciate you guys very, very much for that. Okay. They're not firing Desai. They're not firing Brian Johnson. I thought it was fascinating. I talked about it on my show today that Dave Spadaro, friend of the show, Eagle Insider, works for Philadelphia, basically came out and admitted that Nick Sirianni is still in full control of the offense. Now, that's expected because he's the offensive-minded head coach. Like Sean McVay should be in full control of his offense. Shanahan in full control of his offense. But I felt like, and I'm curious where you're on this, I felt like we were sold in the offseason that Brian Johnson kind of had his blueprint on this offense, that they were going to take what Steichen did best and merge it with the Brian Johnson philosophy and create this incredible offense. And what we've seen has not been the case for a majority of quarters, because there have been games they've been good, but they've been certain quarters they've been bad, certain quarters they've been good. All right, running game's been abysmal the past couple of weeks. We obviously can talk about that, but I really thought that Johnson was kind of the mastermind, and then that's where I kind of directed my distrust and disgust of not being able to run the football, of not running RPOs, of not being able to move the ball down the field. Now with this new Dave Spadaro revelation, to me it sounds more like Sirianni is running the ship right now. Sirianni comes up with the full game plan. He then goes to Brian Johnson and delegates and says, here's what we're doing. Here's what you are able to do in these scenarios. Here's this play, that play. Go on and call the plays. Now, if I thought back to 2021, the Eagles' first 6 games. This is like 3 years ago, but it feels like just yesterday. They were terrible. It was the first real full starting season of Jalen Hurts. He could not throw the football, and yet they dropped back 45 times a game. And it wasn't until Nick Sirianni gave up play calling and Steichen took over, they ran the ball well, and it all started in that Week 6 Thursday nighter against Tom Brady and the Bucs. And if that's the Sirianni who's calling, running the ship now, it doesn't really surprise me why the offense has struggled at times, because we saw what it was like when he was in charge back in 2021, and the results were a pretty mediocre football team. And guess what? They had way less talent than they do right now.
Without a doubt, yes, you're right. And I saw a number of comments too saying, "Hey, this is reminiscent of the 2-5 Eagles squad." You're right. I mean, this is what you're talking about there when Sirianni was calling the plays, when he was fully in charge. So, I don't know. It was one of those that I think, to me, hearing Spadaro say it or seeing him say it on Reddit was more of, I think we had speculation, right? Whenever Brian Johnson was hired, it's like, okay, he's an inside man. He's with Sirianni, but you can tell that Sirianni loves to be involved with the offense. He loves to be involved with everything, but he loves to be involved with the offense. And I don't know how much was true. I don't think a lot, but Jonathan Gannon, outed Sirianni, basically saying in the Athletic article that Sirianni's freaking out, like, oh my gosh, what do we do? I can't get rid of the play calling because they're going to think I'm weak and all this other stuff. Now, again, who knows what was true there? And I tend to believe, that the liar is a liar here because Gannon's lied about a lot of other stuff. But still, the claim is that Sirianni was kind of hesitant to do it, and JG's like, what do you have to lose? We're going to get fired if we have a 2 and whatever record at the end of the season.
Right.
So let's just give it a shot. Now, whatever the case may be, to your point, when he did give the keys over to Shane Steichen and say, all right, let's see how this thing rolls, it was a drastic change. It was drastic improvement. So I don't know, but yeah, like if all this, flack and everything else going to Brian Johnson, because we've seen a number of times, like how many games do we look down on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and see the trending is fire Brian Johnson. Like I know we see some comments of fire Nick Sirianni, but the vast majority is directed right at Brian Johnson because he's the OC. So I don't know. I'm with you. There needs to be certainly some blame on Sirianni as well. And from all intents and purposes, it's like hey, Brian Johnson, here's your options. Like you're basically playing Madden here. I mean, you have 3 plays to choose from. I'm going to give you these 3. Don't deviate from it. That's all you have to go with. And you're kind of hamstrung that way. Now, again, in press conferences, I don't know, BJ doesn't give us a whole lot. He's echoing the same thing. And I guess it's not too crazy or, it's understandable for him to be backing what the head coach says. Okay, Sirianni's like, well, it's an extension of the running game. Then I'll just say that. I don't know. It's hard to judge, honestly. And I understand you got to back up your coaching staff. You want to keep it PC. You don't want to give up too many things to the media. That's fine. But yeah, it's just a little bit hard whenever we see this and all of a sudden you're going, well, would it look differently? Like if we just said, hey, you know what, Nick, you completely remove yourself. You only have game management and let's see what Brian Johnson does. I don't know. But something has to change. Hopefully, the fans outside the NovaCare complex that are holding up the sign saying run the ball, and Sirianni recognized that during his presser and says, yeah, we're going to run it more. I mean, maybe that's a little bit of a difference, but it's a combo. Like I'm not going to give the players a full excuse too. They're not executing as well. I don't think you could say that the players are at the same level either. There's lots of other cases of maybe Hurts is holding onto the ball a little bit too long. Now it's both sides. I know it. I know that. I totally know that. And I feel like if you're going to put blame, it's more on the coaching staff. But yeah, like at what level do we say this is more of a Sirianni problem or this is more of a Brian Johnson problem? Now that's totally different from Desai's, but I don't know. It feels like he's definitely got his hands in it more than he did last year with Steichen. That's at least my opinion anyway.
It's hard to know. It's so hard to know. And to your point, you listen to Jason Kelsey on WIP this morning saying, in terms of the running game, it's the blocking fault. Like he missed a bunch of blocks. They're missing combo blocks. They're not able to have those big bursts. I mean, week 3 and 4, I think, or week 2, 3, and 4. I mean, DeAndre Swift was almost the number 1 rusher in the league. And since then, what do they have? 20 total carries or 9 total carries for 20 yards against the San Francisco 49ers. And again, they called some of those runs. I covered them on my show today. None of them worked. It's not like we are running for 15 yards and then they go, just kidding, screen pass to Julio Jones. It's like we run for 2 and then we throw and it's incomplete. And then we screen pass to Julio Jones. Or we run for 2, then we get a false start to back it up to make it second down and long. Then we screen pass to Julio Jones, and then we try and throw it down the field. I mean, it's so hard to go back and forth on where this is. Although, I think China says it best. If we're freaking out about losing one game, I wonder what Carolina fans are talking about. That's a great point. We have to take this all with a grain of salt. Philadelphia, if they go to Dallas on Sunday night, Gabe, you and I will both be at. I'm going to be at your house in just a couple of days. We're super excited for that. If they were to beat the Cowboys, they have virtually locked up the East. ESPN's Power Index gives you a 99% chance to win the East after beating the Cowboys. Your chances of winning the 1 seed are like 83%. It's all but guaranteed. And again, we've said it day after day after day. If you're the 1 seed, you get an easy first-round matchup, or I guess second-round matchup after your bye, but your first playoff game is against the Falcons, or it's against the Lions, who defensively have been very, very, very bad, or against the Saints, or, pick your bad NFC team. And then all you have to do is beat the Niners or the Cowboys one more time in Philadelphia in what will be a freezing cold game for a dome team or a team that comes from out west, and you're back in the Super Bowl. That's all it takes. And so while we want to panic, and if they lose to the Cowboys in bad fashion, we can really start to panic, I do think there is a grain of salt here and a whole bubble to kind of take where the Eagles are at right now, because we could be 6-5. And if you're 6-5, we'd be really talking about firing people, but a 10-2 football team, nobody's getting fired this offseason. The only way you're losing either of these coordinators is if somebody hires them off of you to be a head coach somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, if you have to have, again, if you were at a losing record, like you brought up and like China brought up, then sure, we get it. But it's a 10-2. I know it's easy to overreact based on a loss. And I also understand. I think we all realize this. We've been saying it a number of times, despite it's hard to temper expectations, right? Because it's like on one hand, we go, hey, look at the record. The end
Yeah.
justifies the mean. But at the
Yeah.
same time, Jalen's echoing it the entire time. It's the standard, the standard, the
Mhm.
standard. We're not playing
Good
up to the
point.
standard. And he said it
Good point.
every single week. So it's like, where is that happy balance? Where is that happy, line that we can get to? And can you finally say that the Eagles played a complete game? Because honestly, if you look at all the playoff teams, I would argue every team that is in the I guess the top echelon, not the wild card fighting for it, but if you're talking
Yeah.
about the division leaders, and even you could probably even throw the Cowboys in there, heck, if you want to, but they've all played at least one complete game. And I don't know that
Yeah.
I could point to a single game this season where I was like, wow, that was dominant. Maybe the Bucks game, but like even there, like, why does
Yeah.
it feel like we struggle to put teams away? And obviously, over the last 5 weeks, it's like, well, we're down again. We got to climb out of this
Mhm.
hole. So there's some shakiness, and we've all seen that. And then it finally culminated in hey, you got blown out at home. It's a bad loss. I hope this is the motivation that we have to be able to
Yeah.
play better. But I do, and we've talked about this, right after the game, even saying I think this is a good thing for Dallas. I think
Yeah.
this is a motivator. This is going to be, hey, we got to regroup. We got to show up to Dallas in a place that, they have 14 straight wins. We don't have the best record when we go to Dallas. Maybe this is the wake up that we need. Maybe we get some adjustments. Obviously, you get the Shaq Leonard edition. I hope so. I'm definitely not near of where, I understand it. I understand the reactions of fire Brian Johnson or fire Desai, fire both of them, scrap it all. But to your point, we're 10-2. We're 10-2. We're
Yeah.
still leading the NFC. And as we've talked about before, there's been instances of ourselves with Eagles, but other teams as well, getting beat and blown out in the regular season and then showing up in the playoffs and playing better. So we can turn this thing around. We can play up to the standard. And if for some reason we can finally figure out a way to play a complete game, it's going to be dangerous. That's just the question is, at what point do we get there? So I don't know. I think that I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, because I think there's a little bit of a missing link in terms of maybe that physicality, maybe that intensity. And I know that AJ Brown had talked about it like, hey, we had basically a rah-rah or team meeting to say we're going to show up against Dallas. Now, I hope that we see that, but there does feel like so far through this season, there's not quite the same level of physicality. We're going to punch you in the mouth and you really don't want to see us yet. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but how do you feel about just I don't know if it's the personalities on the team, and mainly the defense I'm talking about. We have basically the same guys in the offense, but like on the defensive side of the ball, who's the guy that's just like going to get in your face, or when there's the jawing from the Niners, going to step up to him and say, all right, let's bring it. Let's go. It's something in the pregame. Are we missing something there?
The C.J. Gardner-Johnson is someone I see in the comments right now. People saying, we miss C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I know it ended well and people have a sour taste, but he did kind of give us that edge. What is the identity of this team right now? Because you look back on the 2017 team and the 2022 team, and the identity was the offensive and defensive line. And for both sides of the football, they were dominant. I mean, last year, the sack numbers were insane. Sack numbers are very, very mediocre this year. There's nothing crazy going on in terms of the sack numbers. Jalen Carter has been pretty quiet the past couple of weeks. I mean, Jordan Davis has kind of played a little bit better than him, you can argue, when he's been in. Obviously, you think back to the Rams game when Carter had multiple sacks, but since then, he's been very, very quiet. Reddick's been okay, but he's not been 2022 Hassan Reddick. Josh Sweat had a couple of game spurts, but very, very quiet in that game against the 49ers. Like, the defensive line, it's not the dominant, scary force that it's meant to be. And this whole entire defense is predicated off of getting pressure with 4 and bailing out what is a subpar secondary and subpar linebacker play. In the past, Philadelphia either had, especially with younger Darius Slay and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a very good secondary with an elite defensive line. Right now, they have a very good defensive line with an okay secondary, and they're getting burned because of it when they're playing these better football teams. And likewise, what's the identity of the offense right now? The identity of the offense is Jalen Hurts making plays and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith being really, really good. That's your identity. It used to be number one offensive line, you don't touch our quarterback, and we are going to make sure that our running backs have 5+ yards of non-contact running room before you even get close to them when we run the football. That's gone. I mean, that is completely gone. And that goes back to the whole idea of maybe they aren't running the football for that one reason, because the offensive line isn't running or isn't blocking very, very well. I don't know. But the lack of identity is a problem. And whether it rears its ugly head and the Eagles are going to blow this season and lose in the first round of the playoffs or not be the 1 seed or not win the East, I don't know yet. They could turn things around. They did it the last time they lost against the Jets. They came back around on Sunday night. We were there, and they played maybe their most complete game against the Miami Dolphins, at least defensively. That was their best overall performance against what was a very motion-heavy, speed, talented, offensive-minded sort of system in the Miami Dolphins. So I'm hoping they start to figure things out. But I saw a comment earlier in their comment section, 900 people watching right now, someone saying that, listen, it's too late to be fixing things now. You have to be fixing things earlier in the season. Adjustments are something that we talk about week 4, not going into week 14, and maybe that's the case right now. But this is still a good football team, and again, we will see what happens on Sunday, but it is interesting that the majority of Super Bowl teams will have 5 to 7 blowout games a year where they rout people by double-digit points. Philadelphia hasn't really had one minus, I guess, like you said, the Bucs game. And again, they felt pretty comfortable with the Dolphins matchup. It got a little close there, but they pulled away in the end. They just aren't imposing their will. And I hope that that's what A.J. Brown was talking about when they had their little team meeting that he mentioned after the game on Sunday, is that they are better than you. They should be better than you. There's only one roster that's really better than them in the NFC, and that's the Niners. But it's not, 25 points better. It's 3 points better. It's a coin flip better. I mean, come on. I mean, they're very similar in roster size and roster style and construction. They need to start imposing their will, feeding the football to their skill players, and beating teams down early, not making mistakes, and hopefully pulling out to big leads against the Cowboys like they should be able to do.
Yeah, we have to see it. I agree with you. I didn't mention the Dolphins, but I'm glad you brought that up. That's another potential. It was a good game. We were there, obviously, and
one of the better ones.
It for sure it was. But I would still argue, like you brought up, there's like the identity part of the team. I don't know. It's weird. It feels weird to say that, but we're this far into the season, and we're kind of the comeback kings. Like, we get down and Jalen somehow miraculously leads us to a comeback, and the defense does just enough in the second half to be able to get us the chance to go down and win it. It's great, but it's heart attack football. Like, we're literally every single week going, how in the world did we win that game? It finally catches up to you. So I don't know. I mean, I was pulling up the box score here from the NFC Championship game because I knew it wasn't great, but just curious on the running totals. We had 44 carries for 148 yards. That's 3.4 yards a carry. Like, that's not good, but we still committed to the run to say, hey, look, we are an imposing team. We are going to kill you. And we were saying that when we were at the game, at the NFC Championship game, early on. We're going, all right, this is a little bit dangerous. Right now, obviously, Purdy goes down and gets injured, and the D played lights out. I mean, 7 points. I get it that they didn't have a quarterback, but still, they played lights out. But it was the consistent of, no, you know what? The running game may not be working right now, but we are not going to shy away from it because our identity is our offensive line, and you're going to feel us, and by the fourth quarter, you're not going to be able to stop it. And that's what we saw. It was early on, the 49ers could stop the run, and finally, it was like, all right, we're going to get 5 yards of carry. We're just slowly marching down the field, getting third down conversion, fourth down conversion, game over, easy. So this year's just a little different. It's you have, first quarter, maybe midway through the second. Now, I get it when you fall down, that makes it tough too. But even in some games where it's like it's a close game or even we even had the lead, the running totals aren't as good. And some of that sure can go to the O-line. I know Jason Kelsey has been honest about it, and I appreciate it. But it also feels like it's just that combination of stick with it. Like, if our identity is supposed to be behind this O-line, give them the momentum. The more that we can just impose our will on the defensive unit of whoever we're playing, even if it doesn't work great, if it's, hey, 3 yards a carry after the first quarter, we're up to 3.2 yards a carry at halftime. It's like, eventually I feel like it's one of those, and Brian Johnson even finally admitted it for once, but saying like, oh yeah, if it's, 7 carries for whatever yards, 10 yards, and then finally DeAndre Swift breaks one for 30, then the yards per carry looks better. But I mean, guess that? Are you kidding me? Everyone knows that. Everyone realizes that. That's why you stick with the running game. It's not always, now sometimes it is, but it's not always oh, there you go. There's a 7-yard carry. There's a 10-yard carry. There's another 13-yard carry. Like, against the good teams, it's usually 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards. Oh, there's one. You broke one for 25. Like, that's what you have to stick with. And so far they haven't. I hope, and I'm optimistic, that this was the wake-up call to say we're going to change minimally, but I do agree that there's not any major changes that we can see from both sides of the ball. Now, we can see it in terms of major changes in like acquisitions, and I'm glad that we got a Shaq Leonard because maybe that's the change that you need. But scheme wise, I don't know that you could change it drastically. I think you could change a little bit, but they got to find something because there's not that much of a, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, physicality, intensity, wherever it is. But I just don't have that same level of confidence yet. And maybe it's just the fact that we haven't imposed our will consistently enough to say, oh, hey, look, there's another game. Good. We're up by 20 at halftime. We could just run the football. We can dominate and go home and rest easy. I don't know. We just haven't had one of those.
Do you think that Zach Ertz would make a difference? I know we have him in the thumbnail and in the title, and the latest news on him is that it feels like it's between now Philly and San Francisco. I mean, we talked about the Ravens are out, the Cowboys are out, the Chiefs are hovering, but San Francisco now has made a big push to go ahead and sign the former California kid, is where he comes from, in Zach Ertz, and it'd be really, really insult to injury if they beat us up on Sunday and then roll back around and take Zach Ertz from us. Do you imagine? Think Ertz makes a big difference on this Eagles offense? Does he... I know he does a lot for nostalgia. I know seeing him in 86 would be super cool. I know he can still play. I'm not saying he's washed, but does he do anything for you? If the Eagles come out tomorrow and say, we've signed Zach Ertz, what's your reaction?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'll hate it because, he's going to go to another team. Your question of, like, does he make a difference? Probably not. I mean, to a very small scale, maybe. Like, I think Dallas Goedert makes a huge difference, right? Like if we don't have DG, we've seen the difference in the offense, and it helps because the teams can just say, hey, we're going to double AJ more, even if whoever you want to call, Stoll, Calcaterra, whoever it is kind of open. Jalen's not going to throw to him, and I don't really blame him because it's not really a Dallas Goedert that you're throwing to. But if Goedert gets injured, Ertz maybe is. I mean, I'd say he's for sure better than what we have. Yeah. But if he's not injured, then like, what are you getting from him? Maybe 2 catches in a game, kind of a Julio Jones, honestly. Like Julio's been okay. It's not, I wouldn't say that I'm shocked by where his usage is right now. Like I think that when we signed him, that was my expectation is Julio Jones is going to have a couple games where maybe he makes a catch for you, maybe he gets a touchdown, makes a block or whatever. But like overall, he's not an earth-shattering sign or acquisition. Right. He's not the Julio of old, which is fine. And I think that's the way that it is for Ertz. I don't know. Maybe it's more of a morale thing. If you get him, you know what you got. You have the leadership, but overall, it's not gonna move the needle very much. I would just like to do it honestly, just because of the whole Ertz in Philly. I think it's more of just a morale booster for me and us fans, probably more than anything. But yeah, I don't expect that's not gonna change it a lot, really. I would love to see. Honestly, and this maybe is kind of going off on a tangent a little, but if we're talking about like offensively, and this is probably more of a drastic change, so we won't see it, but like I would love to get a little faster pace of an offense. Like, can we run a hurry up a little bit? Can we just do something that's a little unorthodox? Because it feels like we're slow in so many areas. And I don't know, I'm curious to see if you agree or maybe disagree with me here, but it's like Jalen's time to throw is one of the last in the league. So he takes forever. We know that. And it's probably play calling, deep routes, long to develop routes, trying to find a home run hitter, whatever it is. But then it's also like, it feels like we get a first down or we run a play. And then it's all of a sudden, how many times the broadcast are we going, oh, it's 4 seconds on play clock, 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Oh, gets the snap off. It's like, can we for once just get the defense off balance a little bit? It feels like last season we had a lot more to change it up. One drive, it's like, oh, hey, we're going to go hurry up, and you kind of get you off balance. And oh, maybe we slow it down. But this season, I don't know, to me, just optically feeling like as we're calling the games, as a defense, you know what to expect. Well, they're gonna basically snap it under 5 almost every single play. And I don't know if that's a play call getting from, as we heard from Spadero, maybe it's Sirianni. Hey, Brian, here's your 3 plays. Now relay to Jalen. But whatever it is, it's taking way too long. But I don't know. Is that a big deal? Is that something you're noticing? Just curious to get your take on that.
I mean, I've noticed it too. They used to run a ton of hurry up with Jalen Hurts even as early as last year. And a lot of times you thought it was more to help Hurts out. That way he didn't have to sit there and try and read a defense too quickly. It's just snap the ball, one read, ball out, and move on. And so maybe they're giving him more time because he's able to handle more of that pre-snap, figuring out which reads he wants to make, who's the mic, who's the, this and that, who's in the box. But I do think mixing it in at times wouldn't be bad. The same goes for the RPO. I mean, you talk about things we don't use anymore. The RPO is one of them. And this whole idea that Jalen Hurts is too injured to run the RPO. And you go, okay. But then you watch him scramble and you go, okay, well, he's scrambling. So Is he too injured to run the RPO and not injured enough to run the scramble? Like, it's just strange to me. And I maybe they are trying to fully protect him. Maybe that's the simple answer. But I think mixing in as many tricks up your sleeve, whether it's pre-snap motions, whether it's ghost motions, whether it's hurry up, whether it's RPOs, to make sure this offense continues to roll, because they roll at times. They rolled the first 2 drives of the game on Sunday. They just couldn't convert in the red zone. They score those 2 touchdowns. Maybe it's a little different story, but they also have drives where it's 3 and out so fast you blink and the Eagles are punting the ball back to that horrific defense. It's just like, oh my gosh, it's killing me. So I'll be interested to see it. I'll push back on Ertz a little bit though, and I see comments here saying that Ertz would be good, Ertz would be bad, back and forth. I think Ertz gives you a little bit more juice than Julio Jones, because Julio has to run some wide receiver routes, right? He's on the way outside. He's on the far side of the field. He's got to run digs. He's got to run comebacks. He's got to run go routes. And the speed just hasn't been there. Ertz is running against linebackers. He's running from a close tight end, hand on the ground set, and it's a 5 yard out, 5 yard in, button hook, turnaround, maybe a slot fade in the end zone. I think he gives you some interesting looks that they can pair with Dallas Goedert. They were really good with 12 personnel back when Goedert was young and, Ertz was the guy. They really worked out a lot better than what Philadelphia's been able to do with 2 tight end personnel since Ertz left, with Jack Stoller, Calcaterra, who clearly aren't, it. And I know you're not anti-Zach Ertz, and I don't think he's going to come in here and catch 7 touchdowns, but I do think he would give you a little bit of an edge and at least provide depth, because I think this is the 3rd straight year Goedert has had some form of injury and been out for some portion of the season. And although he says he's healthy and he's good to go and he's going to play on Sunday, if he were to get hurt again, especially for a playoff stretch, having Ertz in there, I think would give you some familiarity and very similar skill set to Goedert, even though Goedert, I think, is way better than Ertz ever was at the peak of his power. That's not a slight at Ertz. I think Goddard's that good. I think Ertz was on football teams that had bad receivers, so he was given more chances. People Goddard on the 2015 Eagles. I mean, the guy is going to be an absolute baller. Goddard now has to share with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, so it's a lot harder for him to kind of get his. But I think he's an extremely talented tight end, and you can't take away from him. But still, I think it'd be very interesting to see if they can bring him back. But I would also argue the fact that it's about to be Thursday and Ertz hasn't signed, it's not a good sign. If it was as clear-cut as I'm going back to Philadelphia, retiring as an Eagle, helping out with Jalen Hurts, it would have been done by Monday. I mean, Shaq Leonard was done. Boom. It was instant. The fact that Ertz is not signed has taken this long, I think, is a little concerning from a will he be an Eagle standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would have probably been earlier. We've heard reports, obviously, of Ertz meeting with Philly or having talks and linked to Philly. There's possibility of a favorite. I mean, all that makes sense, right? Because he was here previously. But then you get all these other rumors of, now it's the Niners possibly, and he is taking his time, which, I mean, that's understandable. Yeah, like you're going to try to get your best deal and everything. But it's like, it does feel like if you were really wanting to go there, that you could have just gone ahead and made a decision already. Now, I don't know if it's hey, we got Shaq Leonard, so that pumps the brakes a little bit on us or Howie or the deal or what we can offer. So Ertz is now like, maybe I'll go with someone else. Can I get more? I don't know. But yes, it's like with the delay there, you kind of question it. So I'm with you on that side. Master Flow here said, bro, what's up with all the negative comments? If we beat Dallas, I don't want to hear these clown comments talk. True. Remember when they said the Dolphins were going to eat this defense up? That's a great point. That's what you were saying earlier. You said that the Jets losing to the Jets. I know we were saying the sky is falling and the season is over. We're going to lose through the gauntlet. We're going to get killed. It didn't happen. We were at that game. I hope that this is one of those wake-up calls and say, hey, we need to make some changes. We need to make some adjustments. We got some new personnel. You got Zach Cunningham hopefully coming back. Looks like he'll be back. But yeah, I mean, I'm more confident going into this game, I will say. I mean, I know that the Cowboys, I think it's 3.5 is what they're favored. So, it's going to be a close game. I like the underdog. I like going to Dallas. You're right. Nobody's going to pick us. Everyone's going to say, did you just see what they got beat by the Niners last week? There's no way they're going to go into Dallas and win. That's fine. Keep doubting, because I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me if we show up on Sunday and all of a sudden we're like, hey, we won the game. Now we're definitely the favorite for the NFC East, for the NFC, the top seed. It's not I understand it. It doesn't feel great coming off of a loss like that. You never want to get beat that badly, for sure. But I've seen some trolls on here too saying, how did it feel to get beat in prime time? I mean, not as bad as probably losing the NFC Championship game in prime time. No. So, I mean, come on, it's a regular season game. Like, you're going to lose some games. That's all right. Sure. But I'm optimistic. You're optimistic. We're going to be there. If you believe in sort of thing, I'm undefeated going and watching games in Dallas. So we've got that up against the Dallas 14-game win streak. Something's got to give. I don't know, but I'm going to be wearing the lucky AJ jersey.
It does feel like Dak is due. Dak Prescott is going to get a big contract this year. He's playing himself into the MVP conversation. But as you look through who they've played, it's been a bunch of nobodies. Beating up on Carolina and beating up on the Rams and beating up on the Patriots does not impress me. Like, the Seattle win was a good win. They also almost lost that game. They gave up 30-plus points to Geno Smith on the road. I mean, in this vaunted Cowboy stadium that they can't lose at. I mean, that was their best.
Could have very easily lost that game.
Very easily lost that game. And you talk about Deron Bland, defensive MVP. They had no answer for DK Metcalf. What's your answer for A.J. Brown, who's extremely motivated, it seems, coming off of a good performance against the 49ers, a 100-yard receiving performance, but a losing performance nonetheless? It feels like they're due. This is a very good chance for Philadelphia with the underdog mentality where they play at their best, roll into Dallas with nothing to lose, and go out there and win and finish. Literally, you're done. You can go to you take on Seattle the following week, which would be a tough matchup. You could lose that game, sure, but you have 3 easy games to close out the year. You would, at worst, with the winning against the Cowboys, maybe lose to Seattle and have, 3 losses on the season? You're winning the East. You're the 1 seed. And the beauty of that is you have to let Dallas and the Niners beat on each other before they play you in the NFC Championship game. And then you're 1 win away. And guess what? The AFC, I'm not trying to preview a Super Bowl matchup or anything. The AFC is extremely weak right now. They're all either injured. This is not Mahomes' Chiefs from the past couple of years. We saw that. We beat them at Arrowhead. The one team that would scare you is Lamar, because Lamar plays well against defenses that haven't played against him. But Lamar's lack of weapons and Mark Andrews is definitely, a problem. It's not like there's a juggernaut on the other side waiting for you to, beat the snot out of you. If you get by Dallas and the 49ers, you're feeling like the hardest is behind you, and you're going to go take on an AFC team that has had to work through their own battles just to get to the Super Bowl as well. This is not the, Goliath waiting at the end of the valley for David to roll up with some stones. I mean, if you get to that point, you've already defeated the giant in the Niners or the Dallas Cowboys, and you should be able to put up a fair fight against an AFC team in the Super Bowl. I know it's really far away, but it's a very interesting year. It's a very, very interesting year. And one loss has completely flipped the script on how we all feel about the Eagles, and yet feels like one win could do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it is. I agree. I mean, it's one of those where you look at all the losses that different teams have. AFC, NFC, it's weird. It's the NFL is a strange league, as we know. It's hard to get wins, and sometimes teams don't show up, and sometimes a team surprises you. Or heck, even Kansas City lost to Green Bay. I mean, I don't know who saw that coming. It's difficult maybe to play Green Bay in December and that record there. But again, it's like random things happen like that. So I'm with you. Yes, it's you lose some games. It happens, but as I think Jason was saying it here a second ago, but Jalen is 5-0 in his career outside of his rookie season. It's been 2 years when he lost one game. He's won the very next one, so he hasn't lost 2 games in a row. So there's all sorts of streaks and records and everything else up for grabs here against Dallas. But I'm confident. I'm just saying it's going to be a good game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout on either side, but I'm confident going into it. We even saw Deron Bland, you mentioned there with DK Metcalf and with Smith and Jigba, but Devontae Smith, he had the touchdown in the second half that kind of torched Bland there. So he is gettable. He's aggressive. He's got interceptions. I know that, but he's very gettable. And you saw that he had last game against the Seahawks. He had the most yards allowed by a cornerback all season in the NFL. So, if that just tells you something, as good as he can be, and hold the record for, most pick sixes in a season. That's great and all, but there's areas of weakness. You can get him there. On the flip side, does Desai learn, figure out something, adjust, whatever it is to slow down CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson? Because the middle of the field, like it's mostly been, we were torched. I mean, there's no other way to put it. We were absolutely torched by Dak and their offense. That's the only part that I think it comes down to, really. I'm confident the offense will get back in gear. They're going to be up for this game. It's going to be intense. It wouldn't surprise me if we have both receivers in Devontae and AJ go off. But defensively, do you think that Desai can make some adjustments? Do you feel like he could do just enough? or are we sitting there going like, I get it. Dak is you want to see Dak in the playoffs, but let's be honest, like Dak in the regular season, especially at home, like he's good and he's played well recently. So where are you at? Do you think that Desai can make enough adjustments to hold him down?
He's going to have to. Who's going to get interception in this game? Think back to the Buffalo Bill game. They were getting worked all game long, and then suddenly Bradbury jumps in front of a Josh Allen pass, intercepts it, and gets Philadelphia into good field position, and also kind of turns the game around. This team was a turnover machine last year. Think of what C.J. Johnson did when he was leading the league with interceptions, and it wasn't just stepping in front of passes, it was tip balls. I mean, when's the last time Philadelphia got a tip pass interception this year? I can't even think of one. I genuinely cannot think of one that was tipped and fell into the hands of an Eagles secondary player. Was it week one?
Slay and the pick six because Justin Evans tipped it. But yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Got to get turnovers.
I don't think we've gotten another one.
When you turn Dak over, whatever that stat is, I'm sure people can look it up. It dramatically goes in favor of the opposing team. When you don't turn Dak over and you let him just carve you up, it's going to be a bad night. And I think we have gotten to the point where the Eagles secondary, it's just not going to get much better this year. It's as good as it is. Now, credit to Bradbury on Sunday. He was not thrown at all. At all. That onslaught of Brock Purdy didn't throw one time at Bradbury. Slay was thrown at 3 times for 39 yards and 2 catches. Like both of them played fine. It's everybody else, it feels like. Byard is completely non-existent. Blankenship's good in tackling, but he seems to get lost in coverage, even though he leads all NFC safeties in Pro Bowl voting, which I thought was kind of crazy. And then the linebackers. Like, the whole plan against Philadelphia on Sunday versus the Niners was slant routes, quick screens, get the receivers with the ball in space, and force Nicholas Morrow to tackle you, and him and Christian Ellis couldn't do it. That's going to be the same game plan for the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to move CeeDee Lamb into the slot. They're going to move him to the outside. They're going to get the ball to Jake Ferguson. They're going to run Pollard on screens. If they can tackle and force Dak into one turnover, Philly wins this game. I think it's that simple. I think offensively, you're going to be just fine. Dallas recently has not shown any ability to slow down the Philadelphia Eagles. Recently, I mean, you think back to the Gardner Minshew game basically a year ago. Gardner Minshew went up and down on them. That's when they had Trayvon Diggs and were healthier defensively. You go back to a couple of weeks ago, Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, they were dealing the majority of that game. It's the defense that must step up, and if they can get Dak on the ground and force one turnover on Sunday, I really think that they're going to win that game. I mean, I really, really do.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because honestly, it was crazy that we only had one turnover in the last game. I figured we'd have, maybe a couple, but we only got one, and it was literally, I mean, kind of a fluke if you want to say it, because it was, CeeDee Lamb catching it and trying to toss to whoever. Yeah. So I almost don't even count it. I know on the stat sheet it counts, but it's kind of a fluke build. But yes, if you get one, it could be all the difference. And we've seen, a number of times where it can flip the script. You can have a little bit of a momentum swing. But I feel like that's kind of what we do need. Kudos to Minshew, even though it ended up in a loss. It won me my fantasy league. So I know that there's an option there. But hopefully, I mean, like Donald Shipley says here, I'm over the Niners game. Games like that happen. My issue is Desai. It has been all year long. Yeah. How much do y'all trust him? I mean, we've been talking about it here this entire time. Like, I don't know. He's dead last in third down percentage, third down conversion.
That's crazy. That's a crazy number.
Oh, it's insane. It's insane. But the problem is, and by the way, too, I think people that watch the shows maybe already know this, but the only one who's worse, and this is not third down conversion, but just defensive drives efficiency is the Cardinals. So Jonathan Gannon and your Cardinals are dead last if you want to do defensive drive efficiency. So neither are good. But third down percentage, we know that's a killer. That is every single game. And the worst part is, you look at it, it's also, if you go into deeper dive of that stat, it's 3rd and 7 and longer is worse. So you're already dead last, but the really bad part of what we give up is dead last in the league, specifically in 3rd and 7 and longer. So how many times are we sitting there going, oh, hey, great, we got him to 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14, 3rd and 19. It doesn't matter what it is. And all of a sudden you're like, well, there's a first down because somehow we just drew up a scheme that doesn't get pressure, or it's too soft coverage, or you allow openings over the middle, whatever it is. And we've seen it a number of times. I don't know if I've got to say level of confidence. When the season began, I was optimistic, but it has just kind of slowly tanked here. And I want to still say that there's something that can change. And with the personnel additions, the linebackers getting healthy, maybe you find something there. But I mean, I don't know if I'm going to talk on a scale of 1 to 10, and 1 being fired and 10, through the moon, he's going to win us a Super Bowl. I don't know. I'm probably at a 3, maybe.
Okay, wow.
So far where he's at right now, he's not shown, and I know he doesn't have the personnel, but
Yeah.
it's the same. I do like the adjustments. I'll give him one bit of praise. And there's been a number of games we go in at half and we're like, what's happened? What is he doing here? Because it seems like the middle of the field is always open. He's always going to do that. But then at halftime, he makes necessary adjustments, and we've seen some games that we've won because of that, and it's been great.
Sure.
But why every single game? We've talked about this all the time. It starts out the exact same way. The middle of the field is a weakness. The slant route is a weakness. The tight ends are going to kill you. And if you have a fantasy tight end, to play them. It's just like, don't you know that by now the teams are going to attack that area? And I'm sure he does, but it's like, whatever scheme-wise they're drawing up, every single time we for sure get to halftime before it gets addressed. And that's where I say it's like, I don't know that my confidence is not high. Like I feel like you got to get some turnovers. You got to adjust some things, try some other creativity. And by the way, blitzing is not working. Paul Domowitch had a great stat on that, but we're one of the last ranked teams in terms of blitz, or when we blitz, the quarterback's passing rating is like 120 or 115, something like that. So, I don't know, but it's definitely not high. I don't know. I don't know if you're as down on that or trust him a little bit more, but my trust level is not high from what we've seen from Desai.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's slowly gotten worse and worse. I really thought that he was the bright spot of the two coaching hires. I thought he kind of figured things out. After the Miami game, I was all in. I'm like, this guy's going to be great. Everything seems to be fine. And he has his moments. Second half against the Chiefs, really good. Albeit, a drop pass from MVS probably maybe changes that game a little bit. Second half versus the Buffalo Bills, couple of drives there, really good, but, a couple of missed field goals or missed 59-yarder. You're probably losing that game. I just don't understand how we can have B-level talent mixed in with some A's all over that defense. Like, before the season, we would have told you that you have A talent on the offensive line. You have A- to B+ talent at the cornerback spot. Now you add in Kevin Byard and Reed Blankenship. That's at least B- talent. Linebackers could be C+, but that should give you the 15th best defense in the National Football League, not the 32nd or 31st best defense on third down. It's just amazing how much they've regressed and seemingly just don't get stops at all. And I blame players a lot, and players have to make plays, but it does feel like they're a little bit ill-prepared. And when James Bradbury comes out and says, yeah, the motion kind of surprises a little bit, and then Sirianni echoes that, and then I think BG had a quote saying that it was a little bit ill-prepared, and then Desai said we were ill-prepared. It's like, okay, but you know what's coming. Like, how can you be that ill-prepared? Like, good football teams shouldn't be that ill-prepared, and so I'm starting to really lose faith. Yeah. But, you hold Dak Prescott and Dallas under 21, you win on Sunday, and you force 2 turnovers. We think Desai is great, and we're going to obviously be the 1 seed, and everything's fine. So,
True.
It's a week-to-week league, and we're taking it on the chin this week because we're not used to winning as Eagle fans. You see it in the comment section right now, and we don't know what to do with ourselves when we lose a game this badly. It hasn't happened in a long time, and so we're trying to figure it out, and hopefully the week slides by a little faster than it is, and we get to Sunday night when Philadelphia can put this week behind them, close the book on that chapter, and open a new one to hopefully being, 11-2 and pretty much guaranteed the 1 seed.
Yeah, I'm with you. We want to see something change, kind of flush the memory there and move on to something that's a little bit better and see the differences. But it just feels like, and you mentioned it. I mean, they're saying the right things, and early on, you get a pass for that, right? Like week 2, 3, 4, whatever. It's like, okay, hey, cool. Desai's taking ownership. Brian Johnson, say a few things. Sirianni, like, oh, we need to change some stuff. It's going to get better, but we're fast forwarded so far now, like we're towards the very end of the season. Obviously, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore for you to say like, oh, it's on me. I got to put the players in a better position. Blah blah blah. You've said that every single week. It feels like, and so I don't know. At some point, it's just don't tell me, show me, and I guess we've certainly passed that point. But it's at this point, I don't care. I don't care what you say in the press conference. It can sound the best because we've heard it a number of times. We have to see it. We have to see a difference. You make some adjustments. Maybe you got a couple, new changes with personnel, obviously, mainly Shaq Leonard, but I don't know. It needs to be better. We've talked about this before, but it's not like you have to be a number. It's not like you have to be a top 10. Even if we
Yeah.
clean slate, say, hey, let's keep track of stats like from right now till the end of the season. You don't have to be a top 10 defense. You really don't.
Right.
Like, you could be a top, 15, maybe even 20, honestly, like as good as the offense could be, potential and everything there. If we stick to the run, if the O-line starts playing a little bit better, if Brian Johnson maybe is allowed to call plays that he wants to, again, I don't know if it's more on Brian Johnson or Nick Sirianni at this point, but whatever the case may be, the defense can still win you a lot of games if you're just like top 20. You say, hey, you know what? We're not dead last in third down percentage, third down efficiency. You've won a number of games. We've beat a number of really good teams. We've gone through this gauntlet. The schedule wasn't great. We had 3 games in 13 days or 14 days where teams coming off of a mini bye are playing us. So that plays a factor too. But yeah, it's not blow it up yet. It's not freak out. We're 10-2. Reminder, we are top of the NFC, but you do need to see a little bit of changes and play a little bit better, certainly on the defensive side of the ball. So I don't know. I'm with you. I'm hopeful. It's going to be exciting to be in Dallas. Maybe we get a change. We spoil the Dallas party, because I've seen all these comments. We're seeing them heck in the comments section here, but even in our videos, it's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna clean up the scraps from what the Niners did. Like, all right, yeah, well, let's see, let's keep talking. Let's see what happens on Sunday night.
Let's wrap up by answering the question of Ndamukong Suh. You mentioned him on your show yesterday. I briefly threw it in mine today. Does he make a difference? I mean, it feels like it gets a little annoying when anyone who's a free agent is, rumored to go to Philadelphia, and it's like, okay, we're going to sign all these old players, and then this year we have kind of signed all these old players. Like, they actually have come to Philadelphia. Ertz potentially next. Any interest in Suh? Does he do anything for you? He didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, not really. It's cool. Like you talk about, like the older players, you sign back some guys, the possible reunion, you're going to get maybe an Ertz, coming, all this other stuff. But for Suh, of all the, I don't know, of all the recent ones that I can think about that we've been linked to, I think it's the least. It might not, I don't know, it might not be the least likely. To me, it feels like the least likely, and it certainly feels like the least impactful if we were to get Suh. The only difference that I think maybe it makes, and I talked about it in the show, is you get a little more attitude, possibly. You get a little bit more of that intense, physicality, even if he's not going to play a whole lot. Like, you just have a little more attitude pregame. You have a little bit more of just kind of some swagger showing up. I don't know, something like that. But again, I mean, you got guys on the team that can be that, and I think they are to a certain extent, but like Fletch and BG, and you've got, possibility. I don't know, Slay's not as much, but I just didn't like the fact that you see James Bradberry going back to the Niners game, sitting there, the Niners taunting, going right by him. And honestly, like, I'd never advocate for a personal foul, but like pregame, get into a little shove match. I don't care. Like, go back, show some intensity, but they kind of just let him walk by and just like stare, kind of like, oh, okay. It's not a great look. So, do you get an enforcer like that on the sidelines? Maybe, but in all terms and purposes, like, it doesn't do anything. Our D-line, it's not the weakness. I really don't think that it is. We're getting pressures, but the secondary, as we know, I mean, it's just, you can't hold up. They can't hold up for 2 seconds, and so even if the D-line's getting a little bit of pressure, the sacks are down. Overall, if you look at the stats, I'm pretty sure the pressure rate is very similar to what it was last season, but the sacks, as you mentioned, are mediocre. So I feel like that kind of tells a story of the guys are winning their matchups fairly often. I mean, about what they were last season. They just can't get to the quarterback because, as we know, I mean, the secondary is just like, well, there's another opening. You could throw it over the middle. I don't know. So you probably don't need the D-line acquisition of Suh, but I don't know. Maybe who knows? Maybe they just bring all the guys back. Say, who else from last year? If you want to cut him or bring another guy back, we'll see. But Xavier Ragland here says, we'll be fine. Josh and Thomas, relax, have faith. So I think we'll be okay. I think you do too. So, again, we're there's some cautiously optimistic. There's some things that do need to get fixed and changed, but overall, I'm still optimistic. I'm ready for Sunday night. I think that I do think that we'll win. I feel like this is a wake up call. Will be maybe similar to what it was for the Jets, but I'm still confident. I'm not saying, hey, let's say that there's no chance, there's no way that we're going to win the playoffs. We're going to get a quick elimination. There's no shot at the Super Bowl. I still think we're going to be okay. You need to make some changes, but let's not go overboard.
Nathaniel Bowden says, is Seth Joyner right? Are we afraid to tackle? I mean, Slay and Bradberry are. But I mean, it's not like it's a revelation. It's not like, oh my gosh,
right.
They are. They they're two cornerbacks. What cornerbacks aren't afraid to tackle? Slay and Bradbury have always been terrible tacklers. I didn't get that whole argument between him and Slay. Like Joyner was saying, you guys didn't tackle well. You looked scared. And then Slay said, don't talk about us like that. We played really well. And Joyner said, no, you didn't play that great because you missed a lot of tackles. And it was like, what are we arguing about here? Yeah, they didn't tackle well. Did they cover well? Statistically, they did. Did they tackle well? No. I mean, Joyner's definitely right. But Joyner also is, he's a little bit of a firecracker. He's a little bit of someone that wants to ruffle a little bit of feathers, and he's not afraid to go after people. When you watch any of those post-game shows with Joyner on him, he's never satisfied. Something's always wrong, regardless of win, lose, or draw. And so I think what he said was fine, but I didn't see it as worth all of the brouhaha that formed on Twitter. It was crazy. But what's crazy too is all the Niner fans in the comment section, because it's fun because we appreciate everybody watching. But I genuinely don't remember the last Niners Super Bowl. I believe it was pre my birth, right? I mean, I don't think that I've been alive since they won one. It feels like Cowboys all over again, because the Cowboys definitely haven't won one since I was born, and I can't remember the last time the Niners won one. I think it was a pretty long time ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, it does feel like it's a long time ago. I was going to look it up and see, 1995 was the last one.
So I was not alive. Wow, that's a long time. Yep. That is a long time. Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, kudos to making it to one. I guess they've made it to, but just can't.
I guess this past weekend really was their Super Bowl. This past weekend was their Super Bowl, and they're enjoying the Swirls' victory. So congratulations! I'd be pumped too if I won my version of the Super Bowl. I'd be very excited.
For sure. Yeah. What? Hey, I'd really honestly bring on all the comments. Keep watching the videos. Keep watching the shorts. Sure. Comment. I don't mind. Like, if we win, we're gonna talk a little bit too. But again, it's a regular season game. So like, I didn't go find, I know that some people did, but I didn't go on like Chiefs channels and be like, oh my gosh, we beat you guys. It's okay. It's a regular season. Cool. Like, we won, right. And I did a game recap on it, but like, I'm not going to go crazy on it. So in the playoffs now, if that happens, okay, it's a little bit more serious. That's fine. But it's just a regular season game. It's one game.
I totally agree. Hey, listen, and the Niners have Seattle this past week or on Sunday, and dare I say, there'd be a letdown game of, after all the hype of beating Philadelphia, you could turn around and lose to Seattle, then you quiet down a little bit. So that
would be crazy.
All right, we have plenty more stuff happening, obviously, the next couple of days and weeks here. I fly to Dallas. I'm staying at Josh's place Saturday night. It'll be a bunch of fun there, and then we'll be at the Cowboy game. I don't remember what section we're in, but we're obviously higher up because Jerry is very proud of his ticket prices there. But we're gonna be there. He'll be in a AJ Brown jersey. I'll be in my Devontae Smith jersey. If you see us hanging around, we'll be one of the few Eagle fans in there. Come say hi. Be a bunch of fun, and let's just hope the Eagles can hold on and get that 11th win of the season. That'd be pretty fun.
Yes, yep. I am looking forward to it. That is going to be a blast. By the way, got a quick spin the wheel. If you don't mind, I could share the screen here. But this was from the past, kind of pick the score and yardage total. So these are kind of the closest. It was actually the closest. So it was going to be a giveaway for a jersey. But then I was like, well, if you get it, we'll do some Kelly Green gear, since they had released, the new Kelly Green. So I'm just getting around to it. But we could spin that real quickly. All right, let's
when it's up.
Share that. There we go.
There it is. Boom. All right. This is for Josh's channel.
Yes. Yep. Here we go. These are the closest based on Jalen Hurts' yardage total and the score prediction from the Buffalo game. So since I wasn't going to be there, I was like, well, let's have some sort of giveaway. So
okay.
All right, here we go. And spin the wheel. It is Ruben. All right.
There you go. I've seen Ruben comment on both of our shows. Congrats, Ruben. That's good stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, congrats to Ruben Torres. Just as always, just DM me on Twitter or X, or you can email me. That's in the description, link in the description. So, however, let me know size. Probably take a look at the shop there of what they've got, but size of a shirt. Send me a screenshot just to double check, make sure it's you, and then we'll get that sent out. But congrats, Ruben.
There you go. Right on. All right, we're gonna wrap things up here. Obviously, be looking for our shows coming up the next couple of days, and then go Birds. Again, you get this win, and a lot of the upsetness that we've had the past couple of days goes away, and hopefully they're able to do that. And if not, then you got to kind of sit back and be ready to go in terms of the Seattle Seahawks and not let the losses kind of spiral and ruin your chances of still winning the East. So we'll cover all of that as well. All right, for Josh Davis, I'm Thomas Mott. We sign off. See you guys.
There you go. Go Birds.